And we are live. We are live here at the Christian, we're here at the Witches Haven channel. I just finished this amazing live with these amazing women from the Christian Witches Roundtable. And we had the opportunity to talk about the Bible, about divination, about the ways that we have misinterpreted certain books and use them against other people because we don't understand what their journey is. Um, I wanted to talk to you about personified deity. Many witches come to our groups, to our pages, trying to seek inspiration, trying to seek information about how to work with their deity. And to be honest, this is a very personal thing. This is like asking a person what is your sexuality is. Is going to be very independent of everybody else's practice. Your interpretation of said deity could be completely different from what everybody else is doing. And I was brought to my attention two things. One from the Norse pantheon, and from the Greek pantheon. We have in the witchcraft community, we have taken upon other cultures to actually work with those archetypes. The issue with that is culture, time, the era where it was in all its glory, our needs as independent people from those cultures. We're still going to be outsiders. It's like a person from Nebraska trying to actually build up a craft around the Egyptian pantheon is going to be uphill. Hi, Darian. Hi, Angela. Hi, guys. If any, and it doesn't matter if the stream is over, you can actually put a question in the comments and I would absolutely afterwards if we're still on the air, I will answer it on the air. If we're afterwards, we're not in the air anymore, I will personally write it down in the comments for you. Now, what I prepared a little, show and tell here. Why work with personified deity? Why we tend to externalize with prayer, with ritual, with exchanging the personified imbuement of what you believe or what you want to achieve. Let me put it to you that way, because when we get into the craft, when we go into the craft, we don't know what we're doing. So we're believing the people that tells us that, for example, Hecate likes keys or likes certain fruit or doesn't like anything at all, that they're Persephone or Hades or things like that, that there's this very distinctive ways of actually working with that deity. What does that mean? Why work with a personified deity? First of all, this is something that is completely for you. Like I said, a person that is a devotee to Isis is not going to assign to her the same aspects that maybe you would. So when you put two people that practice the same thing in the same room, they are going to argue about the way that those deities are worshipped, because we don't do that in a way. We can start by doing what everybody else is doing, putting the altar in a specific way, buying the same statue, using the same incense, creating the same oil. But when you get into your practice and you get your feet wet, that's not working, that's not working, that's not for me. And it's okay, and it's fine. And people get nervous because they're afraid that some Yahoo on the internet said that's not the way that you do your practice. I remember, it was a while ago, I saw this video from Molly Roberts that is a spiritual FOMO, that she had this viewer like you write her telling her that she should not do that she should not put this next to this, you shouldn't have worship. That is the things that I don't understand. He declared himself a a magician or some giving themselves some titles, because people that will tell you what to do are going to give themselves some titles, because their own self, it's not enough. So, oh my goodness. You, and I put, let me take out my notes here real quick. Why do we work with personified deity? Why? Because there is a specific transition in our time. For example, when we go to children, to adult, to teenager, from teenager to adult, when we become a mother, a father, when we have a new job, when we get married, when there's so many things that can happen in our life that we can actually benefit from that type of relationship. We can get strength, wisdom, we can get advice, simple advice, and we know what to do. It's just that sometimes we need something that we think is above us to tell us that's the right choice. You can better identify with a specific god or goddess archetype. For example, I know a lot of witches claim, or that is what they decided, that they were going to be daughters of the Morrigan, that they were going to be with Santa Muerte, that they were going to go with Hecate, even in all of her incarnations. I did a live video this past week, and this person from Greece, she went insane in the comments. I was explaining the way that many people in the West, meaning here, use those pantheons, those Greek pantheons, and they put them out of context. And she was going insane. And I understand, because the only person that knows what's going on in the kitchen is the one that is holding the spoon and looking at the pot. And it is what it is. We cannot pretend that we are all the way here and we know exactly what happened thousands of years ago in the minds of some Greeks in an island. That is not, especially we haven't studied Plato, Socrates, we haven't studied any of that. So we assume and we make this, I don't know, this romance novel in our heads that, of course, people are not going to be pissed off by that. This is a private practice, and unfortunately, who cares? If somebody tells you or starts ranking on you, that's not the way you should worship. That's not the way you should worship. They don't pay your rent. And honestly, they don't see what you see in those archetypes. And that's what I was getting at. You see a very specific face of that archetype. I remember I had this student that she had severe self-esteem issues, that she had this distorted perception of herself physically. So we were working for a while with the goddess Venus and Aphrodite and that incarnation of the goddess of love. And we used it to actually create that personification of that deity, so it can actually be used by her to find that self-esteem. And when you are called on by the goddess of love, by the goddess of beauty, sooner or later you're going to start going in that direction. And I think that is the humblest thing to do, when you actually take an archetype, take a deity, and it takes you in. And when I say it takes you in, that you assimilate it, that you actually work with it in a way that can actually help you and those around you, I think that it's worth it. It is completely worth it, at least in my eyes, because you want to explore your ancestry. And I know this may not be for many people related to the archetypal deity, but it is. Many people work with guided, with guides, and those guides in many cultures are deceased family members, deceased people from your family, from your clan. I always remember one of my favorite movies, Mulan, the Disney Mulan, when Mushu was in the temple with all Mulan's ancestors. And it was a beautiful representation of the value that we give to our ancestors, the value that we give to the people that came before us, their wisdom, the things that they did for that family, for that clan, and to go into your ancestry and say, oh, my great grandmother was, I don't know, a dressmaker, or she was a singer, or or it was a murderer or something like that. There is always something that we can learn, not only from our genetics, but also from our ancestry, where we have been and where we're going. Because blood walks, literally walks. And there's blood literally walks. And sometimes it walks all over the world. When we have those 23andMe DNA testing, or we go very deep into our ancestry work, finding out our family tree, we discovered that there is a lot of magic in our ancestry. Grandma's folk magic, our great grandmommies, I don't know, teas, or home recipes, or home remedies. Home remedies. It's all there. It's all there. That's exactly how I found out that, at least in my family, they were practicing spiritism for at least 3.5 generations. And when I say 3.5, is because my father decided that was too much for him, and he converted full-blown into the Baptist faith. Because you want to connect with your story. That's another reason why you work with your personified deity, because you want to connect with your story. People talk about shadow work a lot. They throw shadow work here. The really difficult part is to actually get and do it. Sometimes we have wounds that go for generations. Abuse, alcoholism, drug addiction, just being in pain. Sometimes we give that to our children and our children's children, and it's no different from our ancestral history. There is a lot of tears within our past that we're still carrying in our DNA. And why do I say it with this with this certainty? Because it has been proven. It has been proven that DNA has a memory. That's why we have to, at least to the best of our ability, to try to lead a happy, healthy life, so we can lead a happy, healthy child, so they can give that to their children's children. And there is nothing wrong with that. Actually, that should be something that we all aspire to. We cannot do it every time, because of course circumstances, but it's worth the try. It's really worth the try. So when we have different motivations and different and becomes a different presentation. Wow. Sometimes when people work with a specific deity, it presents in a completely different way. Sometimes a deity that presents itself as a maternal or paternal would come to you hard and judging. At least this is the way that you are perceiving it. That doesn't mean that that's exactly what is happening, but you're feeling it in that way. You have to understand that when you, like God or any type of God, goddess, or lack thereof, there has to be a relationship there that you have to build. People always get sidetracked by the fact that when, for example, in Christianity, in Islam, and other faiths that are centered in one God, and it's very specific God with a very specific structure, they feel like a one-sided relationship. Like the more that they pray, that it's only a one-sided relationship. And that is not the case. The case is that you lost the touch with yourself. You lost that tie that you have, that silver line that you have with your higher self. And that's when you feel like you're completely isolated from the world, and God or the goddess or doesn't hear you, because you have to find yourself. They know where you are. And even if we're talking just metaphorically, you know where you are. You just have to come out and actually live your truth. How do we do this? Where do we start? We have to start with, where are you at right now? You can choose to work with a specific deity. Find out what they're about. Look at their symbols, their correspondences, their little stories, their lineage, because this is something that many people sometimes overlook. Like in the Norse pantheon, like I was mentioning, there is this tree of, this is the father of this, and they got together, and this god created this other archetype, and it's endless, and there is a reason for that. Those are decades, even though sometimes even thousands of years of history making, and that story keeps adding on and adding on. Some people don't give a crap about that, but that is something that you can actually do. There is something about that archetype, that deity, that it's really calling you. It's your job to actually find out why that is. If that deity appears to you, and I'm going to be bold and very honest, if it appears to you, or you think you're having a vision or some sort of it, it's still in you. Nobody else can tell you exactly why that is. Where is that coming from? Because it comes from you. That manifestation, it comes from you. So might as well use it. It could be in the form of a symbol. It could be in the form of a thought form. Because when we have this relationship with an invisible, metaphorical, or even archetypal idea or thought, it becomes real. And when I say that it becomes real, it becomes part of you. And I have seen this a lot in witches or practitioners that say that they're channeling, that they have this very two distinctive personalities that comes through. One is starting to manifest, was it the Godhead or the medium or the spirit that is actually talking through you, and you. There is a reason why all that is happening. So the best way that you can find out why is to actually sit with yourself, sit with your deity. Or it can also come in the form of imaginary friends. This is for the little children. I have worked with 13 kids that are considered gifted, or that they see things or they feel things. So for them, it's a very distinctive, very different approach. Let me put it to you this way. These are children. They have their own way of seeing the world. So we have to be very careful not to knock down that imaginary friend that your daughter or your son are talking to, or they're referring to as the lady in the closet or the lady in the window, things like that. You have to be watchful about those things, because that is going to happen. Or simply spirit guides. Oh, the puppy. I have known a lot of people that their only guidance, their only archetype is their spirit guides. Some of them know what they are, some of them don't know. But many of those spirit guides, many of those imaginary companions, and I'm going to use that for a very specific reason, those imaginary companions, because you're the only one that can actually interact with them. Those always tend to either do two things, either give you very bad advice or very good advice. And for both, you have to listen, because they both come from you. Okay. You have to really do your homework. You really have to do your homework. And for that, you have to have time to commit to a ritual. And when I say rituals, you have to study it. You have to be in that space with that deity. If it is Persephone, if it is Hades, if it is the Morrigan, it doesn't matter, Papa Legba, you have to be in that space present with your deity. because there has to be an openness in communication. You have to take it seriously, because unfortunately you're the only one who is going to take it seriously. You have to be ready to people making fun of you. You have to be ready for people telling you that's not working or is not going to work. You have to be ready, and you cannot be butthurt about it, because at what point you were there in that stage too, where you were not sure where you were going or who you were going to follow. Now, and pay attention to what transpires. You cannot ask for a petition and then when it happens, not acknowledge it. Many people pray and they do spell work, and then there's all these signs around them and they keep ignoring them. And I'm not talking about feathers or pennies. I'm talking about real serendipitous and magical coincidences, which they don't exist. Coincidence don't exist. It's the way that it is. We have to pay attention and acknowledge it. If something good happens to you because you're actually listening to your higher self, give yourself some props and write it down. I think it. Oh my God. There was this practitioner that told me, don't ask if you don't want the answer to that. And sometimes that answer comes in the form of something unexpected from an action. So if you were asking, does my boyfriend love me? And all of a sudden you find out that he's been sleeping with the neighbor, there's your answer. If you are asking, should I go to school to study, I don't know, architecture, and then all of a sudden you're offered a job on the thing that you really wanted, that you have been considering study, and you got offered a job and an opportunity, that's also a sign. Don't ignore those. If you ask, you will find something. Sooner or later, you will. Either this is not for you, or welcome to your new life. What are the things that you can do with your homework? It's who, meaning your deity. Where does it originate? Is it homegrown? Like, for example, some deity from, oh my God, Native Americans? Or is it something that came from the old world, or something somebody invented in their room in the 40s or the 50s? Because yes, that too does happen. Sometimes people take on practices that are new, that literally are new, that they just came out of somebody else's brain a couple of years ago, and it became a fad, and you got caught up in it, and you have to be ready to deal with that. You can either, if it's helping you, then there is no problem. If it's not helping you, just forgive yourself and keep on going to the next thing. Because sometimes when we're trying to find the light, there is a lot of false lights out there. And that it can come up in any incarnation. It can come as good, bad, ugly, beautiful. It doesn't matter. And that doesn't mean that it's right for you. So I think in that sense, it is what it is. So let me see. Put on paper the correspondences of this archetype of this deity and see how it applies to your life. This is just a stupid, very short example. When I started studying the Morrigan around 12 years ago, I started noticing that before that, the reason why I started looking into her information was that I was being gifted old keys. I was seeing in a place like this that there is no ravens. There were murders of ravens everywhere. Murders is a cluster of ravens. And I kept ignoring it for about 4 years. And then somebody on Facebook mentioned that about the ravens and about the keys. And I said, that's interesting. So nobody's going to find out. So I'm going to go and dabble into that. And it was fascinating how some of those correspondences did. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We have a puppy here. So yeah, some of those correspondences were not for me. They weren't. But some of them, they really helped me get out of the little situation that I was at that time. And that strong determination of her presence, of her as an archetype, not necessarily as a deity, I had to step back and say, what is it about me that I am doing that needs this right now? Let me open the door. Sorry. There you go. Only live, my children, only live. What was about me that I was going through that I needed that type of strong archetypal backing me up? And it was the transition in my life that I was going through back then that needed that strength. And honestly, I couldn't get it anywhere else. So like an armor, I just put on my hat and put on my my big B pants on and said, I'm going to do this. You can use those correspondences to create a sacred space for your deity. First, find out if it needs or it doesn't need, because I hate when people say it needs a statue, it needs this candle, it needs this. That is something that only you can find out. I know witches that have no altar whatsoever. I didn't have an altar for the longest time. That was my most active as a witch. Sometimes when we go into these deep discoveries of ourselves, all the work is in here. The altar is more like a visual representation of your struggle. When you look at a person's altar, you say, okay, this person is doing a spell on money. That's a love spell. This is for protection. You actually can see where the stage of that person is because just by looking at their altar. But that doesn't mean that you need one. I know people in countries that can get them killed. And of course they don't do it. And I would never recommend anybody to do anything that is going to get their life or their livelihood, meaning your job, in danger for that. It's not worth it. It's not. People don't understand, and at the end of the day, they don't care. So create an album for your deity. I love scrapbooking. If you have access to a printer, or if you don't want to do it anywhere else, go to your computer, create a virtual altar. You can do that. You can create a virtual scrapbook of your deity. Go to Pinterest and go crazy with those pretty pictures and create something fabulous. In your computer, you can print them out and make your own book of your archetype of your deity, or you can make an amazing vision board and use that to inspire you to do other things. Sometimes we only need to do one little thing so everything else would flow. Okay. If there is any symbols or specific correspondence to it and drawn to it in your book of shadows, okay. Does it have a special animal, a special flower, a special perfume, a special incense? Does the deity protect a specific demographic? If it is for children, if it is for mothers, if it is for the working man, if it is for the oppressed, you have to know all those things, because if it is something that you need in the future, maybe now it's not relevant, but it won't be nice that the deity that you're working for all of a sudden has also working, for example, for impossible causes. I'm going there in the realms of the saints and hoodoo and conjure. We can do so many things with those correspondences, but don't get too attached to them, because unfortunately, and this is something that every witch knows, you're going to make your own correspondences about that deity. And that's a fact. The more you try to just stick with everybody else is doing, it's not viable. So it's it's fine. Get acquainted fully with your deity's story and why it's so appealing to you. I remember that when I was going through my, not divorce, my separation, I remember that I used to feel a lot like, you know, I don't know. I was really lost in many ways because I didn't know who I was. So I would take these avatars, like for example, in the movie Eat, Pray, and Love, this avatar of the woman that it was searching for herself through food, love, and spirituality. So I made my personal journey, my internal personal journey about that archetype, the traveler, the wounded healer. Those are the Jungian archetypes. I have used those a lot, not as deities, but as archetypes. It's like putting on a shirt. It's like putting a very specific shirt. And that shirt is going to help you do a specific job. It's like a magical t-shirt. Then you take it off and then you move to another one. Once you finish with that one, you can move with something that is more big kids. Let me put it to you that way. What is the animal association? Does it have any constellations? Does it have a specific food, like I mentioned? A planet, a house. Those are for those that use astrology. Does this deity protect, like I mentioned, a specific group of people? If that is the case, get involved with that specific cause. For example, there are saints or archetypes or deities that are the protectors of children. Why don't you volunteer in a children's charity? Why don't you send a postcard to a sick child? Why don't you work with your local church or community center to actually do something for the kids in your neighborhood? There are many ways that you can serve and honor your deity by helping your fellow human beings. A god, a goddess, God, Yahweh, whatever, don't need your money. They don't. They don't need you spending 8 hours just praying for the sake of praying. No, if you're going to do anything, you do it for your fellow men. You do it for your family, for your friends, for people that need it. Transform those prayers and that devotion and that sacrifice into an action. And believe me, that is more powerful than any spell. How do you connect with your deity? Write them a song or a letter. There is nothing more personal than that. Write him or her a letter. Why do you want to work with that deity? What is it about your situation or your life journey that felt that you were compelled to be near, or I don't know, gain their wisdom? You will be very surprised at what you're going to find in that letter. You are addressing it directly to that deity. Like, Morgan, this is why I want to work with you. You don't have to be poetic unless it's a poem and then go crazy. But there are so many poems and songs written about gods, and many of them really negative, I may add. Put your heart in that piece of paper and establish exactly what you want to do. It's going to do two things. It's going to give you clarity, and it's going to call on your own bullshit. Because sometimes we don't know what we want. We don't know what we need, but we're still mad because we don't have it. So first we have to figure out what we need and what we want. And the best way to do that is by asking. Ask and you shall receive, they say. So do it on paper. I think that is one of the best way to actually start that type of relationship. Channel your deity in meditation. Sometimes we have these conversations with ourselves, and then you're an idiot or along those lines, or you know that he's doing that, or you know that she's doing this, and you just play stupid. Have a conversation. Have a conversation with yourself, with your deity. Say, I cannot believe this is happening, and be honest and be truthful and down to earth, because this is not about how well you can put on a letter on paper or how eloquent you may sound or if your prayer rhymes or not. I cannot believe that there's people that actually don't do the spell work because they want it to rhyme. It doesn't have to. So go crazy. Go crazy. Create an offering charm. Create your own charm for your relationship with your deity. It's like gifting a friend or a person that you admire something special that you made. You have to do it yourself, that thing from the beginning. It could be a charm. It could be something simple. It could be a keychain. It could be a candle. It could be something that you pour your intention into it, that is going to represent that deity for you, that whenever you see it or you touch it, or people that see it and they touch it, what is this for? Oh, this is for this. And you're going to be reminded about that that effort that you had to actually get close to that archetype and that deity. And I think that that is very precious. It is very precious because it gives you an opportunity not only to share that experience, but to remind yourself that you already started this journey and you better finish it no matter how long it takes, because you're almost there. So I think that's a good thing. Oh my goodness. Create your own anointed candle. Those jar candles that they're kind of big. Pick a color. Pick a couple of herbs. Pick a couple of scents, essential oils. And you can use the big pillar ones. You take a skewer. You make 3 holes, or how many holes you want to, and put the oil, put the herbs or the perfume. I know people that put perfume on candles and it smells amazing, amazing. So put your perfume or perfume that you like. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to purchase a big bottle. It could be something that even you make with Florida water, rose water, patchouli, rue water. All of those are extracts of the plant or from boiling rose petals. You can go crazy with that one. And I know many of you guys create your own candles, especially for the Pop Pantheon candles. That is a very good way to actually have that visual representation of your deity. Okay. And make, and this is another not an example. I think this is more than a tip or idea. Create your own perfume. I know a witch that she made her deity a perfume. She actually commissioned a company to actually make her out of specific scents. You know that perfume has 12 chords, and all of those specific chords are specific scent that when they blend, they create the perfume. And she did that. It was an amazing blend of cinnamon. It was very spicy, very spicy, because that's her goddess was very spicy. So she wanted it to be really spicy. And she sent me a sample. And I think it was really creative what she did. It was really creative. And she bottled it up and it had her deity's name and the little symbol. And it was just amazing. I was going to suggest, this is something that everybody does, at least people that I know, many of them do, that they use as tattoos. But then again, not everybody likes tattoos. So if you're going to have this ritual and you're not afraid of using henna, the henna, it's an amazing pigment that creates temporary from 5 to 10 days in the skin using a powder and some lemon juice. You can create your mandala on your skin. It could be here in a visible part. It could be in your thigh where nobody can see it. So the thing is that you have to make it. It's not that you can pay somebody else to do it in your back. You're not going to see that. It has to be something tiny, something symbolic that you can actually carry with you that is from that deity. Not permanent, of course, because that's That's something else. And every time that you find yourself in a stressful situation, and or there is just too much from everywhere, that you're depressed or what have you, have it there so you can have a visual representation, so you can ground at that moment. Sometimes we are in the bus, we're in the car, or we're in the line in the DMV, and we cannot just sit down and do yoga or meditate. Maybe we don't have music to actually distract us. So we have that visual representation to say, everything is okay. I'm here with you. So it serves the same as a cross, or as a Star of David, as jewelry, just is in maybe your hand or your foot, doesn't matter. I know people, the person that taught me this used to make himself a sigil in the sole of their feet. Okay? I think it's freaking brilliant. Nobody knew about it. And it was covered with his socks and his shoes. So he always carried, because he didn't want to ruin his shoes, to use the Sharpie. That's another way that many people, at least in the South, when they do conjure, they actually they draw the symbol of the Veve or the deity that they're working with on the sole of their shoe. And that's actually a spell for it. Okay. Now, this is more like establishing a personal relationship. Introduce yourself to your deity. We wrote your deity a poem. We wrote them a letter. But this is how you introduce yourself. In some aspects, it could be called a dedication, and people see it as such. It's just a dedication. But for people that don't understand that type of language, meaning that they're not Wiccan, period, you're introducing yourself to your deity. My name is such and such. I went through this and this and this. I am seeking your guidance in this and this and this. It is the most private conversation you could ever have in your entire life, because it is in that space that you created to have that conversation, because you feel not judged. You don't feel judged. You don't feel oppressed. You don't feel forced, because you're not doing this because your parents are forcing you. You're not doing this because your neighborhood or your state or your country is forcing you. You are seeking this deity. You are seeking this archetype. So it's your responsibility, like in the way in the real world you're looking for someone, is that my name is so and so, and this is why I'm here, out of respect. You have to establish that relationship in a respectful manner. Okay. The perfume. This is something that I used to do for fun. Create your own sacred war paint. I was taught this by a psychologist. She taught me the best way that you can face the world when you're in training, and when I said in training is when you're working out through your shit, is to always be the best version of yourself in the flesh. Meaning that brush your hair, take a shower, put the best version of yourself up. If you only have 2 pairs of clothing, that they're clean, that they're presentable, because if you take that much care of yourself, you are going to go places. You are going to have more ideas. You're going to accept the things that you cannot change, and actually bless and exalt and bring forth the things that you can actually shine. And by having your makeup blessed is a really good way of actually transferring that energy into your everyday life, when you don't have time to do the meditation, when you don't have time to actually have that congress with God or with your higher self. When you have with your lipstick, or I don't know, something as simple as a brush, you can actually bless your brushes, bless your eyeshadow, bless your favorite lipstick. That every time that you put that lipstick on, that war paint, you have everything that you need to actually confront the world. and win. It's 99% psychology, folks, and 1% drive. So you just have to choose. You just have to choose to do it. You need to record your experiences, good or bad. Good or bad, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you ask for something and they give it to you. It doesn't matter if you ask for something for 10 years and it never came about. Write it down. That's what the Book of Shadows, Book of Mirrors, Book of Enchantments, that Book of Wicked Rainbows. I almost forgot that one. They all have that for a reason, because we can learn from our mistakes, and we can learn from the things that don't work. And it's not a failure, it's a transformation. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So we have to take care of the things that we already went through so we don't repeat it again. And the best way to do that is to actually put them on paper, or do a video, put that video in private. And I know people that have YouTube channels and they have hundreds and hundreds of videos in those YouTube channels, but they're all private because it's their own journey. And I think that's an amazing way of seeing that. Okay, witchy tip. And with this, we're going to close, because we have been, yes, it's going to be 47 minutes. This is your experience. As such, is completely valid and honors your current spiritual stage. So you have to trust it. Sometimes we want to do things quickly. We want to do things without taking responsibility of our actions. We want things to change magically. And the real magic lies in the change, in the transformation, in the steps that we took. The journey itself is what we are going to extrapolate all that valuable experience from. So it is valid. If right now you are not, you can't read tarot, you can't magically make water turn into wine, or any of those silly expectations of some witches. Celebrate where you are right now. Right now you are learning, you are growing, you're becoming the best version of this self. And when you get to that best version, there is going to be another change. We will never stop changing. So don't belittle don't belittle yourself now that you only have taken 1 or 2 steps to actually find yourself within that deity, because in 6 months is going to be something completely different. And you ask any witch that has been doing this for more than 10 years, and is going to tell you, the woman or the man that I was before when I started is no longer here. So that in itself should give you an insight of how all of this works. Is about you. It's not going to work if you don't want it to work. It is going to work if you actually put the work in it. People talk about grace and miracles and things coming out of nowhere. Nothing comes out of nowhere. We have to put ourselves in the space to actually receive it. We have to put ourselves in that mentality, in that, and yes, and a little bit of faith. Angela says, my gran always said that if you put your lipstick on, you're ready for anything. Yep. War paint. My grandmother also used to, but because she was a teacher, she told me you would never cut me dead without my hair done or my makeup on, because you never know who you're going to find in the street, walking in the street. And she was right. Wherever she would go, people would recognize her. And so you have to open yourself opportunities. You have to open yourself to become that change. Sometimes these archetypes are not going to be positive. Sometimes these gods have very real, very human flaws, because they're your flaws. They're my flaws. And they have transpired into those archetypes. So if you want to start, if you don't have a deity, if you don't have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, archetypes, go and get your tarot cards. Go get the major arcana. Use the major arcana as your archetypes. Start with the Fool all the way to the Magician. And believe me, when you work with each of those archetypes, you're going to find very interesting things about yourself. Some of them are not that good. Some of them will actually surprise you that you're that awesome and that great. So feel free to share, subscribe, and like, because that's why we're here. And I know that we can do this together. It's all about everybody putting a little bit of each other so we can finally see that this world, this planet is finally changing for the better. Maybe everything looks dark and gleam, and believe me, I'm looking at my window and it's 6:01 here and it's dead dark because it's been raining since forever. And this is California, so it doesn't happen. It cannot rain all the time. It cannot rain all the time. So keep your chin up, keep your witch's shoes on, and remember, the best is to clean all that negative energy from your head, from your life, from your perceived future. It's all about envisioning the best. It's all envisioning and taking action, because you can pray all the hell you want. You can light all the candles that you want. But if you're not willing to walk the walk, like you talk the talk, then you're wasting your time. And honestly, you're cheating yourself. So blessed be. And we'll see you in the next class, in the next video. And go check out our page in Facebook. Go check out our sister pages, Knowledge from Behind the Veil, and the Christians Witches Roundtable page. We all have amazing contributions to the page. We are actually, yes, these women and all these people that are actually doing all these contributions are making it in the way that you, the viewer, can actually benefit the same way that they have benefit, that I have benefit from that information. So don't be afraid. Don't be a cheapskate with yourself. Allow yourself to be that goddess, to be that manifestation of God, because it is in you. It's always been in you. Remember, like they said in the Bible, and I'm going to quote the Bible so to piss everybody off. It's not even in the Bible, it's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. God is inside you and all around you. Not in buildings of wood and stone. Break a piece of wood and you will find me. Lift a stone and you'll find me there. It doesn't matter where you find your divinity. If you really want it, you're going to find it. So don't disappoint yourself. I believe in you.